All right, we are moving on to two variable statistics. Everything that we have been doing so far is single variable statistics. For example, in the previous lesson that we did, you would ask a person, how far did you drive to work today or to school today? That is going to be giving you a single variable. There's a single variable, which is going to be how far they drove. Two variable, you could be saying like, hey, how old are you and how tall are you? And that is going to be two pieces of information that come in a pair. Or how many hours did you study for the test and what was your grade? That would be two pieces of information that are coming in a pair. So we are going to be looking at multivariable statistics here. We're going to start out a little bit easier. So the start thinking part says use any desired method to organize your thoughts to answer the following questions. So you have this information here, such as the survey included 100 different students. 40 students said they preferred using pen more than pencil. 45 students said they preferred using unlined paper more than lined paper, and 10 students said that they preferred lined paper and pen, and then lastly, 45 students said they preferred pencil and lined paper. And what the students did first was they tried to synthesize all this information together to be able to answer those questions 1, 2, and 3 below. And what they found pretty quickly is the same thing I found out, which is this is really hard to do and make sense of everything without organizing it. So they probably tried for about 5 minutes and most of them got it wrong or just kind of got stuck. And then I went over and made this two-way table. So in the two-way table, I had the top saying that they liked pen or pencil, and then on the left, it was lined or non-lined paper. So on here, now it's much easier because what ends up happening is it's kind of like a Sudoku puzzle where when you know what the total is and you know one of the numbers, then you know the other number. So what I was able to do here was it says the survey included 100 different students. So I was able to have that bottom right be 100. Next, 40 students said they prefer using pen more than pencil. So I knew that pen and lined and pen and non-lined was going to come out to be 40. So I was able to say that total was 40. And I know the two numbers are going to add up to be 40. Next, 45 students say they preferred using unlined paper more than lined. So when I went to non-lined paper, I saw that the total was going to be 45. I didn't have that 30 and 15 in there yet. And then I was able to start adding the other numbers in. It says 10 students said that they preferred lined paper and pen. Lined paper and pen, you put a 10 in there. And then if you say it's 10 plus some other number is going to give you the 40 for the total for pen, then you know it's 30. And like I said, once you go over and fill in some of these boxes and you know that what the rows and columns are going to total out to, it's easy to figure out what those other values are going to be. So this is called a two-way table. Now, once you have this two-way table filled out, it was easy to find out that the number of students that liked pencil more than pen would be the 100 minus the people who liked the pen. So that'd be 60. How many students preferred using pen and unlined paper? Pen and unlined we saw was 30, and how many students preferred using pencil and unlined paper, and you ended up having 15. It was pretty easy once you went over and filled out this two-column or this two-way table here. So the next part here was just saying if the table is already created, would you know what these entries meant? So what does the 17 mean? It is the intersection of curled wings and red eyes. So that would be, it is a fly. I think it was the scientist is trying to determine the role of a specific gene by looking at traits of fruit flies. The offspring of 2 fruit flies are examined to determine the color of their eyes and whether they have curled wings or standard wings. 80 offspring are randomly selected and results are recorded in the two-way table. So once again, the 17 is the intersection of curled wings and red eyes. So it's going to be a fly that has red eyes and curled wings. The next one is how many selected fly offspring had white eyes? Well, it's white eyes and curled wings and white eyes and standard wings together, which is 18 different flies. And then how many selected flies offspring had standard wings? Well, that'd be standard wings and red eyes and standard wings and white eyes. And together they make 58. So this two-way table here was a way of organizing information where there's like two aspects to it. What the students then did was they ran through these problems on their own in their groups. So once again, what you were able to do was take the information and fill in the boxes. When it says Jada ran with headphones on 10 times, when it says headphones on, you know it's going to be something plus 4 equals 10 because the total is going to be 10. So you can put a 6 in there. Then the next one, 10 of Jada's runs that took 25 minutes or longer were completed without headphones. So 25 minutes or longer without headphones, you could put a 10 in there, and now you have the 4 and the 10, which gets you your 14. They also tell you half of the runs are going to be 25 minutes or more. So once you know that it's 25 minutes or more is 14, then you know the other one's going to be 14 as well, because they add up to be 28. And then we're able to answer our 2 questions. How many of her runs took less than 25 minutes? 14 runs. Among the runs that took under 25 minutes, what fraction of them were completed without headphones on? And that would be 4 out of the 7 when you reduced. It was actually the 8 had headphones off, and there were 14 altogether. So it's 8 over 14, which reduces to 4/7. On the next one, you're doing the same exact thing. You're getting these little hints, and you're trying to fill in your two-way table, whether it's the totals or the individual boxes. So you're able to use those hints. 40 of the people responded that they use mouthwash. So you could say mouthwash, that would be the top row, so the total would be 40. The next one is of the people who use mouthwash, 30 people floss. So floss and mouthwash, you can go over and put a 30 in there, and that would allow you to know that the don't floss is 10, because 30 plus 10 equals 40. The next one, 55 people responded that they do not floss. So when you go under don't floss, that column right there, the total would be 55. And then the next one is 45 people responded that they don't floss and don't use mouthwash. You could go under don't floss, don't use mouthwash, put a 45 in there. And then what you're going to be able to do is, using those numbers, there's only going to be 1 box left over for each row or column, and you can fill those in. And that's how I found out the answer to number 1 is 30. The next one, a lot of people messed up on this one. They knew that don't floss was 10, and then they thought that that was 10 out of the 40, but it says what percentage of people responded. So that we had 100 people that we checked in with, 10 have responded that they use mouthwash but don't floss, and that's out of 100. So that would be 10 out of 100, which is 10%. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the homework. This two-way table shows the results of asking students if they prefer to have gym class in the morning or afternoon. So when we look at this, how many students participated, you could see the bottom right corner is 100, so it's 100 students. How many students in 8th grade preferred to have gym in the morning? When you look at 8th grade and you look at morning, you have 18 of them. This is just making sure that you understand how to read a two-way table. How many grade 10 students participated in the survey? If you look at grade 10 and you go all the way over to the total, it's 38. And how many students preferred to have gym in the afternoon? If we look at afternoon and you go straight down into that column, the total was 55 out of all of the grades. The next one, you were supposed to, it says a random sample of adults are asking about their preference for a first dinner date with someone. Complete the two-way table so that it has the characteristics listed. So you were supposed to fill in the boxes here. This one did not have the total column and row, which was a little bit strange. It says 122 people responded to the survey. If it was me, I would have gone over and put the total columns in there. And when you put the total columns in there, the bottom right one would be 122. And then you would have been able to add up the rest. It says 50 of the people who said they ordered dessert said they would prefer to split the check. So it is order dessert, split the check is a 50. 68 people preferred splitting the check. So splitting the check all together, you would have had the total, if you had a total column, would have been 68, which helps you know that the no dessert is 18. And then it says 56 prefer to skip dessert rather than ordering one. If it is going to be 56, order dessert or no dessert, you could see that the ones that add up to be no dessert would add up to be 56. Now the next one says students in grades 7, 8, and 9 were asked whether they prefer to write in pencil or pen. 40 students preferred pen, 60 students preferred pencil. Create values for the number of students in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade that responded to the survey. Well, you can see that together they make 100 students. So all that tells you is that 7th, 8th, and 9th grade must add up to be 100 students. So any 3 numbers that add up to be 100. And then on here, this was a very open-ended question. So when you're looking at this, this is talking about the age groups and whether they wore a helmet or not, and you're supposed to make observations. So some of the observations could have been like 0 to 5-year-old, 25 people were asked. In total, the number of people who wore helmets, you could add all of those, the 21, the 34, the 14, and the 3 up. So the answers vary quite a bit on this because you could be picking out whatever information you wanted out of this two-way table. Now, this last problem here, which was just a review problem, says the United States has a progressive tax system. This means that each dollar that falls in a certain category is taxed at that rate. If you earn $120,000, how much taxes will you pay, and all accounting for the sum of how much you pay from dollars from each tax bracket? Use your calculator, but show me what you put in your calculator. Now, a lot of people thought that if you get $120,000, that's in the 24% tax bracket, so you have to take 24% of the 120, but that's not how it works. To try to be fair, they say, just like anybody who makes 0 to 11,925, you'll be taxed 10% on that amount. And that amount is actually the taxable wage. So you have something called deductions and stuff like that. But if after you have your deductions, if you still owe anywhere between 0 and 11,925, you'll pay 10% on that. Between the 11,000 to 48,000, you'll pay 12%, 22% on the 48 to 103, and then whatever's left over, you're going to pay 24% on. There's other tax brackets after that, but it is not necessary for this problem. The only thing that I messed up on originally is finding out how many dollars fell in the 12% tax bracket. I just did the big number minus the small number, but the problem with that was it did not account for that $926. So you actually had to do your subtraction and then add 1. And the same thing for the next one. If you subtract 103 minus 48, obviously the whole number, you end up not accounting for that $48,476. Your answer would be very close, but it would be slightly off by a few pennies. So what you had to do was do your subtraction and then add 1 to it each time. You could see my work. There was $11,925 that are taxed at 10%, $36,550 that are taxed at 12%, $54,875 that are taxed at 22%, and then the remaining $16,000 to add up to the total $120,000 are taxed at 24%. And when you add all those up, you end up paying $21,647. And what's interesting is if you take that number and divide by the original 120, you end up paying 18% tax. You don't pay 10 or 12 or 22 or 24. You pay 18 when everything is all accounted for. All right, hopefully that all made sense. I will see you in class tomorrow.